Today we're taking a look at some NHL offseason rumors. We're focusing on three players. We're looking at the future here of Ryan Getzlaf with the Anaheim Ducks, Jake Debrusk of the Boston Bruins, and Freddie Andersen of the Toronto Maple Leafs. What does their future hold? We'll discuss what the rumors are coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, today we're taking a look at some NHL rumors for the offseason. Some of it involves trades, it could be involved free agents as well, and some of it actually involves a little bit of action that we could see this year, which will kick things off with the Toronto Maple Leafs and the latest news on goaltender Frederick Andersen, who's been out for some time now, and we don't really know a lot about what he's been dealing with. It's believed to be a knee injury, but we've had comments from Sheldon Keefe lately indicating some concerns over the goaltending. Of course, they went out and obtained Calgary Flames goaltender David Rittich at the NHL trade deadline. He hasn't fared the best in his limited action with the team so far. Jack Campbell was on quite a roll when Andersen first went out, won 10 consecutive games, but has been inconsistent ever since. So certainly they're concerned over, how long can he keep that up? Can Jack Campbell be the guy in the playoffs? I mean, I think a couple of weeks ago, everybody was saying, yeah, you know what, they can ride him as a starter in the first round of the playoffs, and he can get him through till deep in the playoffs if they're able to play their way well enough to get there. And I was in agreement with that as well. But, now there's some question marks. Can he do that? I'm not so sure anymore. I mean, I think if he can get playing the way he did in that streak, then certainly anything's possible. But a lot of it really boils down to the team in front of him as well. There's obviously the team games more than just his own personal play here. And how much goal support does he get along the way? If the team happens to have a dry spell offensively, it doesn't take as much room for error on the goaltending side of things to allow a couple of goals that can make all the difference in a row between winning and losing. So in Frederick Andersen's case, right now he's on long-term injury reserve. We've seen the Leafs put him on LTIR. And of course, they have several other contracts applied to that as well, including Riley Nash, who they acquired from the Blue Jackets at the deadline. And of course, that really impacts what they're able to spend. Of course, they can use that as cap relief to spend above the cap. And right now, Frederick Andersen is saying that he is likely being able to come back and play regular season games before the end of this regular season. So that certainly complicates things from a cap perspective. For them to bring him back and activate him off LTIR, they have to have the necessary cap space to do so. And they're certainly going to have to go through some cap gymnastics to get that done. Now, of course, if he were not able to go, let's say they can't get that figured out and he doesn't play until the playoffs, do you go with Andersen in the first round of the playoffs? It's really difficult to say. I mean, yes, he's got the most experience. Yes, he's been their goaltender for a long time. Obviously, there's some trust and history there, but at the same time, Andersen doesn't have the greatest playoff record. And at this point, if he doesn't get into action until the playoffs, he's going to have been out of action, for, looking at 6 to 8 weeks here by the time we get there. And it's a long haul. So certainly, you have to have your concerns and question marks about what do you do when you get to the playoffs if you're Sheldon Keefe and Kyle Dubas about the goaltending situation in Toronto. But the bigger thing for me is, how are they going to get him into that lineup? What are they going to be able to move around here cap-wise to have enough space to activate him? So at this point, I mean, the trade deadline's come and gone, so you don't really see them making a big trade of any sort, so you're not really going to see much on the waiver wire. I mean, you could see a player put through waivers, it's possible, but you're not going to get a lot of relief that way. So it's certainly questionable. I mean, if another player goes down with injury and they can put them on LTIR, then that's different. They can just swap them in and out. But anyways, it's going to be very, very complicated and difficult to say how the Leafs handle their goaltending situation here down the stretch. But I think if they can figure it out, it'd be great to get him some games to see how he's able to play, so they have a little bit more clarity on how he's doing. Is he recovered well? Is he sharp? Is he in the right space mentally? Because clearly goaltending for the Leafs could be the make or break type of deal here for them in the playoffs. I mean, they've proven all year that they can be strong on special teams. They can be strong at 5-on-5. They have a lot of offense. Their defense is greatly improved. But if the goaltending once again lets them down, that could be a major concern going into the Stanley Cup playoffs. And if you're looking at playing either teams like the Winnipeg Jets or the Edmonton Oilers to get into that division, like, they're pretty offensively gifted, and it could be a real problem. So we'll see what happens. But Andersen seems convinced, based on his latest remarks here, that he will indeed be back and play before the end of this regular season. Now, onto the Boston Bruins and young forward Jake Debrusk. Now, Jake Debrusk is said to be a healthy scratch here this evening. He's going to sit in the press box and watch. And, of course, he's kind of gone in and out of favor here with Coach Bruce Cassidy. They've been disappointed with his overall results, disappointed sometimes with the amount of pace and effort he puts into his game. And it's kind of what Cassidy said, that it's important for him to kind of watch and just kind of, they need him to be better. They need him to play with more pace, play with more energy. They're going to put Trent Frederick in, who can be a bit of a spark. I know there were some fans concerned about Frederick being out of the lineup here as well, in favor of other guys, but Jake Debrusk is the guy that comes out, which might not have been the preferred player to do so, but at the end of the day, the coach has that choice to make based on who's going strong and who's not. And there's a lot of question marks. We've talked about it here before, about the future of Jake Debrusk in Boston. How many times can you fall out of favor with the coach, become that healthy scratch, or become the guy that's kind of looked upon as letting them down before they decide, you know what, it's time to move on. It's time for him to get a fresh start. And when you think about guys this coming offseason that could be beneficial to get a fresh start with a new team, new organization, new line mates, and see if they can get it together, does Jake Debrusk not scream as a prime example as a player who fits that mold? To me, he absolutely does. And I'm a little bit surprised to this day that he's still with the Bruins. But obviously, secondary scoring has been a problem for Boston. And at times it's been good, but for the most part, it's been an issue. And you're not going to be able to move out Jake Debrusk and bring in more players that are going to make it better. It's not that simple. But now, with what their current makeup of their team, they have more of an opportunity to possibly do that. The acquisition of Taylor Hall is going to have a big impact on his future, I think, as well. There's already a lot of reason to think Taylor Hall could re-sign and stay in Boston. So clearly, if they want to make that happen, he could be a potential victim here for cap purposes. The future of David Krejci is uncertain. He's a pending UFA. There has been some talk that he could stay as well. I think that they would be interested in making that happen because there's no real heir apparent to take that spot, at least in my opinion right now. So obviously they could re-sign Krejci, obviously for a smaller value than he's getting paid today, but still he could be with the team. The Craig Smith signing is working out nicely. There's some question marks about Charlie Coyle too. I mean, not so much how he fits in the lineup, or that he's well liked and respected as a player by the fans, I think, but certainly sometimes his production isn't there to justify what he's getting paid. That's also fair to say. But Debrusk seems to be the main player there. That's kind of like that scapegoat that gets all the attention. I think part of me wonders if the reason they don't trade him, or haven't as of yet at least, is to kind of show that 2015 draft wasn't a complete bust. They had 3 consecutive first-round picks in the middle of that round, and the guys they picked, are really besides Debrusk, are not really decent, solid, regular NHL players right now, but they could have had guys like Barzal, Thomas Chabot, just to name a couple that came after them. So I think a lot of Bruins fans do cringe when they look back at that draft and wonder what could have been. Also, the first draft that Don Sweeney was running things there too as well. So it certainly makes you wonder if maybe they're just trying to hold on here to say that draft wasn't a complete bust. Because obviously selling low on a player doesn't usually get you great value in return. But if you can find another player out there that could fit what they're looking for and might be a good Bruin, that could be a potential similar situation, needs a fresh start, maybe that's the kind of swap that we see here. I mean, Debrusk does have another year in his contract. He'll be an RFA again. And I just think it's time for a change. And even though there's been a ton of rumors around this player before, I think this healthy scratch here again, and we'll see how things go. But, unless he comes back with a real strong performance in the playoffs, I think it's fair to say Jake Debrusk will be on the move this offseason. Now, lastly here, we want to touch on Ducks captain Ryan Getzlaf. There's some rumors floating in the rumor mill here that the Pittsburgh Penguins may pursue him as an unrestricted free agent. New president of hockey operations, Brian Burke, I guess he's not that new anymore, but him and Ron Hextall brought in earlier this year after the resignation of Jim Rutherford. Of course, has connections to Getzlaf. Burke was in Anaheim, drafted Getzlaf. Getzlaf was early in his career when they won the Stanley Cup over the Ottawa Senators back in 2007, so they've won together before. A lot of familiarity there, and apparently the Penguins did make some inquiries about potentially acquiring Getzlaf before they pulled the trigger on the Jeff Carter trade. Obviously, Getzlaf was more interested in staying closer to home at that point. But of course, at that point as well, it only would have been as a rental situation. He was interested in maybe going to Vegas. That's about all he really gave the Ducks the option to move him to. So as a free agent, things could change. I mean, many believe there's a good chance he'll re-sign with the Ducks and remain the captain and help lead this team through a rebuild. But at the same time, many feel maybe if that desire is there to go chase the cup, that maybe he goes somewhere and becomes the guys like you've seen, like Jason Spezza and Joe Thornton, etc., that, certainly could be going on, less expensive one-year deals for an opportunity to win. So we'll see what happens, but the Penguins are in a situation where they might not be able to afford that either anymore. It's really going to boil down to money, because Jeff Carter was picked up, but he has terms, so he's staying with the Penguins. Of course, they have, Crosby, you've got Malkin, you've got Brian Rust, you've got Jason Zucker. They have a lot of guys under contract, so Getzlaf would have to be one of those guys taking a very team-friendly veteran deal for a chance to win if he was going to have a shot at doing that, but they are expected to pursue him in the offseason, so we will see what happens. I think a lot of that as well is going to be determined by how well they finish the regular season and how much playoff success they have. They've done well as of late, got themselves in the first place in their division. If they can go on a deep playoff run, then they'll be looking to probably add and try to make another run next year. And if they don't, and they think that, maybe this team doesn't have enough in it to win, we could see them maybe go a different route in the offseason. But I'm not expecting that. I think the Penguins here will be strong enough, and they're going to want to win as much as they can here with Crosby and Malkin down the stretch, while they're still kind of, they're still very productive guys, but clearly, closer to the end of their careers than the beginning, but they still have lots of productive time left, I do believe. So we'll see them likely continue to push to be, in win now mode. And Getzlaf could be one of the players they target to keep that going. So let me know your thoughts on today's content, and we'll discuss further down in the comments. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.